Some secrets are heavy, like carrying a bag of heavy, wet stones that no one else can see. We walk through the crowded, noisy streets of our busy lives, our shoulders pulled tight, our breath shallow and quick, hoping that if we just keep moving forward, no one will notice the immense weight we carry. We pretend that our silence is a form of strength, but sometimes that silence is the very wall that keeps us from the warmth we so desperately need. The city of Silverton was a metallic, shimmering monster that never stopped breathing. It was a place constructed of cold steel and polished glass, where the sounds of 1,000 engines blended into a constant, humming roar. I worked in one of those shimmering glass towers on the 24th floor, where the air was thin and the people always seemed to be in a frantic, desperate hurry. My name is Elena. I am 25 years old, and for a long time I lived a life that was split in two, a life of bright, sterile office lights and dark, freezing alleyways. By day, I was the quiet assistant in a perfectly pressed blouse, typing reports and bringing coffee to Marcus, the man who owned the company. Marcus was an imposing figure, a man of sharp suits and even sharper silences. When he walked through the office, the temperature seemed to drop. People would stop their laughter and focus intensely on their screens. To him, we were all just pieces of a machine. I was a gear in that machine, moving in a perfect, silent circle. Every evening at 5 p.m., my coworkers would spill out into the street. They talked about their dinner dates, movies, or parties. "Where are you heading, Elena?" they would ask. I would always smile, that small, practiced smile. "I'm just going home," I'd say. "I'm quite tired tonight." They imagined me going to a cozy apartment with a warm kitchen. They imagined me winding down with a novel and a cup of tea. But the truth was much stranger. I would wait until the lobby was empty, until the shadows grew long against the marble floors, and then Marcus's car would pull up. I would get in, and we would drive silently away from the city lights toward the quiet hills where the stars were finally visible against the black velvet of the sky. I sleep at my boss's house every night. That is the secret. But before you think this is a simple romance, let me tell you about where I truly came from. To understand why I am sitting in this big, quiet house, you have to understand the sacrifice that brought me here. You have to understand what it means to be truly alone in a city of millions, carrying a burden no one can see. I grew up in a small, dusty town called Oak Creek. In Oak Creek, the seasons changed with the slow rhythm of the harvest. My father was a man of the earth, his hands always stained with the deep color of the soil. He smelled like rain and pine needles. My mother was the heart of our home, making magic with whatever she had in the pantry. We were happy, but we were fragile. We were always one bad season away from losing everything. I had a dream of the city. I wanted to take the weight off my father's tired shoulders. I wanted to send back envelopes filled with money. "Go, Elena," my mother had said, her voice shaking as she hugged me. "But remember, the city is a forest of stone. Don't let it turn your heart into stone too. Stay soft, even when the world is hard." I arrived in Silverton with one suitcase and a heart full of hope. I found the job with Marcus. It wasn't much. The salary barely covered my rent, but I was proud. I lived in a tiny room with thin walls and a window that looked out at a brick wall, but it was mine. I bought a small table where I wrote long letters to my parents, telling them how beautiful the city was and how kind my boss was. Those were my first lies. The city was a lonely, gray place, and Marcus didn't even know my name for the first 6 months. To him, I was just the girl who copied files and made sure his coffee had exactly 2 drops of milk. but I didn't mind. I had a purpose. Every month, I kept only what I needed for basic food and sent every other dollar home. I felt like a hero in a silent movie that no one was watching. Then the phone call came. My sister's voice was a jagged edge of fear. "It's Dad, Elena. His heart. It's failing. He needs an operation immediately. But the cost, it's more money than we've seen in our entire lives. The doctors, they won't even start without a massive deposit." I remember sitting on my small bed, the walls closing in on me. I looked at my bank account. It was a number that made me feel small. I went to the bank the next day, but they simply said no. Their voices were polite, but they sounded like a door slamming shut on my father's life. They didn't see a daughter, they only saw a credit score. I didn't hesitate. I couldn't. Love isn't a calculation, it's a command. I gathered every single cent I had saved, all of it. The money for next month's rent, the money for food, the money for my transit pass. I sent it all to my sister. "Save him," I said. "Don't worry about the money. I have plenty. I have a bonus coming from the office." My father survived. The surgery was a miracle of medicine and a daughter's desperation. When I spoke to him on the phone, his voice was weak but full of life. "You're our angel, Elena," he whispered. I smiled into the phone, the tears streaming down my face in the dark of my tiny room, where I had already eaten nothing but saltine crackers for days. I was an angel with $0 and a heart beating too fast. I was happy, but I was also terrified. The landlord didn't care about angels. He was a man of cold math. When the first of the month came and I had nothing to give him but an apology, he didn't listen. "This is a business, not a charity," he said. "You have 24 hours to pack your things. If you aren't out by then, I'll call the police." I walked out of that apartment with my one suitcase and my old, battered car. I was 25 years old. I had a full-time job in a glass skyscraper, and I was homeless. I didn't tell a soul, not my coworkers, and most of all, not my parents. How could I tell them that their angel was sleeping in the back seat of a car parked in a dark alley, shivering in the dark? For 2 months, that car was my entire world. It was my bedroom, my kitchen, my sanctuary, and my prison. At night, I would park near the docks or in a quiet residential street, hoping the police wouldn't notice me. I would cramp my legs into the small space, my breath turning into white clouds in the freezing air. Winter in Silverton is a cruel thing. It seeps into your bones. I only had 2 thin blankets, and they felt like paper against the bitterness of the wind. The mornings were a ritual of humiliation and strength. I would wake up at 5 and drive to a 24-hour gas station. In the cold light of the bathroom, I would wash my shivering body in the sink. I would brush my teeth and carefully put on my makeup, layered to hide the dark circles. I would put on my office clothes, the one nice suit I had kept clean, and I would look at myself in the cracked mirror. "You are fine, Elena. You are strong. Nobody knows your secret. Just one more day, just one more hour of being perfect." Then I would drive to the office. I would be the first one there, making the coffee, organizing the folders. I was always hungry, a deep, gnawing hunger. I would drink liter after liter of water just to stop the stomach cramps. When my coworkers went out for lunch, I would stay at my desk and tell them I was too busy to eat. I was becoming a ghost in my own life. My clothes were hanging loose, and my mind was starting to feel frayed. One Tuesday afternoon, the rope finally gave way.
I was standing in Marcus's office, handing him reports. Suddenly, the room began to tilt. The bright sunlight became a blinding white roar. I felt my knees simply dissolve, and the world, the office, the secrets, it all just disappeared into the dark. I didn't even feel the impact of the floor.
When I finally opened my eyes, I was lying on the soft leather sofa in Marcus's office. Marcus was standing over me, his face transformed. He looked terrified. He was holding a glass of water, his hand actually shaking. "Elena," he said, his voice low and urgent, "drink this. Drink it slowly, please." I tried to sit up, my face burning with shame. "I'm so sorry, sir," I stammered. I didn't sleep well. I'll get back to my desk." He put a hand on my shoulder, a firm, grounding pressure. "You fainted, Elena. You've been fading away right in front of me for weeks. When was the last time you had a proper meal? When was the last time you slept in a bed?" I couldn't look him in the eye. I couldn't keep the lie alive anymore. The secret was a poison that had finally reached my heart. I started to cry, those deep, shuddering sobs of someone who has tried to be a hero and failed. I told him everything: the streets of Oak Creek, my father's surgery, the landlord, the nights in the car, the freezing mornings where I prayed I wouldn't wake up. Marcus didn't say a word for a long time. He walked over to the window and looked out at the city. He looked angry, but not at me. "I see you every single day," he said, his voice thick with a strange kind of regret. "I see you working, smiling, being efficient, and I had no idea that you were suffering right under my nose. I was so focused on the machine that I forgot the people." He turned back to me, and for the first time I saw the man behind the suit. "Get your coat, Elena," he said. It sounded like a command, but there was a softness in his eyes. "Where are we going?" I asked. "We're going to get your car," he said, "and then we're going to my house. You're not sleeping in a car for one more second, not while you're working for me." I tried to refuse, of course. I told him it wasn't professional. He looked at me with a steady, unbreakable gaze. "I am a businessman, Elena, but I am a human being before I am anything else. I have a guest room at my house that is larger than your entire old life. You will stay there until you have saved enough to get your own place and your own life back. No more questions. That is an order." And so the new life began. Every evening I follow his car out of the city chaos, away from the judgment. We eat dinner together, real food, warm soup, and we talk. We don't talk about quarterly goals. We talk about life. He tells me about his own father and how he still remembers the sound of hunger. He tells me that the hardest thing in the world isn't being strong, it's being vulnerable enough to let someone see the cracks in your armor. In that big house by the hills, surrounded by the silence of the trees, I finally found my breath again. I realized that for 2 long years I had been holding it, waiting for the sky to fall. But when the sky finally did fall, someone caught it. And in the middle of my darkest night, a door had opened where I only expected a cold wall. I learned that kindness isn't a debt, it's a bridge. We are never as alone as we think we are. We often think that success is a solo journey, a mountain we have to climb with no help and no rest. We think that asking for help is a sign of failure or weakness. But the truth is that we are all connected by the same silent struggles. We all carry bags of stones. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can ever do is set the bag down and admit that it's too much for one person to carry alone. If you are listening to this right now and you feel like you are sleeping in your car, if you feel like you are the only one holding up the weight of the world, remember Elena. Remember that even the scariest bosses were once children who knew what it felt like to be afraid. Remember that there is kindness in the world, often hidden in the most unexpected corners, waiting for the moment you are brave enough to speak. Don't be afraid to be seen. Don't be afraid to tell your story, even if it's messy and painful and feels like defeat. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy of a warm bed and a kind word. You just have to be human, and being human is enough. You are more than your bank account, and you are more than your silence. Believe in the bridge of kindness that connects us all. Keep practicing, keep listening, and remember, every day is a chance to learn better. See you in the next one. Bye.